What's going on, everyone? We've got our Showdown live stream for Friday at the Sony Open. We're going to go over the weather, any changes to our modeling, and of course, our favorite plays for today. So let's go ahead and start off here with the weather for today because it's a little bit interesting. It's similar to yesterday, but with a little bit more moisture in the air. So they're going to be teeing off at 7 a.m. Eastern time, not Eastern time, Hawaiian time over there. It's going to start off just like it did yesterday with hardly a breath of wind. It's a 2 to 3 mile an hour gust at the very most and a little bit of dampness. And we saw tons of dew on the grass yesterday. It definitely made it harder to hit out of the rough. And you can see towards the afternoon, a little bit more wind, but only up to right around 8 miles an hour, which is nothing for these PGA Tour pros. It is going to get a little bit more humid towards the afternoon as well. And you can see overnight, it's very likely to probably storm at some point. So that's going to be more of a factor for the Saturday slate. Today, just expecting a little bit more dew than we saw on Thursday. And one thing that we definitely saw change from years past here at Waialae Country Club to what we saw yesterday was the rough. It was much longer than what we've seen in some of these years past. It was right around 4 to 5 inches rather than 3 to 4, which doesn't seem like all that much, but for a PGA Tour pro, that's the difference between getting maybe 90-95% power out of that type of stuff and right around 70-80% at the most. I mean, sometimes even less than that if you get an atrocious lie. So you saw a lot of guys laying up out of the rough yesterday. You definitely saw the more accurate drivers have a huge advantage, which was already something I was hunkering down on, but it's going to especially be the case for today. In terms of the weather, a couple of things we could keep an eye on is it should be sunny for most of the day. And towards the end of the round yesterday afternoon, we definitely saw the course start to firm up. The players had talked about how they hoped it wouldn't rain, so on and so forth. And this could really be the last day of that type of effect. Like I said, it could rain towards the end of tonight. As a result, going to be at least a little bit firm and fast during the day today. But again, on Saturday, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Could be a completely different scenario. What I want to do now is hop over to the Draftkings pricing over here. And we're going to hop over to the stats, kind of go back and forth from this page. I wasn't able to get this imported correctly into my stat sheet. I usually have it just automatically imported, that kind of thing, and it wasn't working this morning. And to try and do that manually for 140 players probably would have taken me all morning. So we're going to deal with what we've got here. At the top of the board, we have Cam Smith, who couldn't buy a putt yesterday. He was on top of it with the off the tee play, which we've seen for a few months now. So we'll be buying back in on the Aussie. Just somebody who fits this course perfectly. He won here not last year, a few years ago, and could very well finish off the Hawaiian double this week. So fair price on him at $10,700. He was over $11,000 for the main slate. So showing that you're getting a little bit of savings there. Sungjae Im, I had some concerns about his putting on Bermuda, and that came to fruition yesterday. You know, he was not good towards the end of 2021. I faded him at Kapalua in my 4-round stuff because of those same type of concerns. It did the same thing here. Obviously, last week kind of burned me. Didn't end up making a huge difference at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm glad I faded him here. Probably going to continue to do so. Just has something going wrong on the Bermuda grass greens. There's just something going on, right? He's historically great on the surface, but of late hasn't been very good. Let's hop into Webb Simpson, though. So we're going to hop over to the stats side of things to talk about Webb Simpson, who really had an underwhelming round yesterday, but had the ball striking. It was the putting again that was really holding him back. And I do not expect that to continue. So here we go. Bringing up the stats here for you guys. So Webb Simpson yesterday did not have his best round for sure. Was keeping the ball in play, just driving the ball beautifully. On the final hole number 18, it's a very hard hole to hit the fairway. You have to hit a sweeping draw. It's about a 300-yard carry. And he was one of about 25 people yesterday to do so. So he was really had a lot of confidence off the tee. He was really good with the approach play, which we've seen for the last few months. But what I'm going to go up and bring on my phone here is the shots gained metrics from yesterday, just to get you guys an idea of exactly what happened. So first and foremost, yesterday, he lost strokes on approach, but that was despite hitting 14 of 18 greens. So that means that those 14 greens that he missed wildly. So a lot of that comes down to variance. Shots gained putting, he was 37th in the field. In terms of his pre-ranking, he's number 5 in the field. So we should definitely see some regression there. He still gained strokes putting, but it wasn't nearly what everyone else was going out there. These greens are perfect. They're absolutely picturesque. And in years past, Webb has also led that shots gained putting category. So even though he gained yesterday, I do expect him to gain a little bit more. And of course, the fact that he lost on approach was a little bit fluky. He still hit a ton of greens. He set himself up with plenty of opportunities as well. So again, he just got a little bit unlucky when he hit a few awry shots. Just cost him a lot of shots, a couple bogeys. Hit one into a penalty area. Obviously, that doesn't help your shots gained approach statistics there. So I do expect a little bit of regression for Webb Simpson. What we're going to go over now is our next pick down the board. And let's hop back over to the pricing. It's going to be a little bit annoying doing this, but we'll make way. All right, back over to the DraftKings board, guys. Dickie Matsuyama, I don't think you need to prioritize him. He had an all right round yesterday, but he was making everything with the flat stick. As of right now, he's gained, it was just over 1 stroke putting, and that's not something that we typically see from Hideki Matsuyama. We know that he's one of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour, but at the same time, he struggles with the flat stick, particularly on Bermuda grass. They like him more on some of those complex bent grass type of complexes. Augusta Nationals, Bermuda grass, but very complex type of greens. He's had a lot of success at those golf courses. And yesterday he gained 2.43 strokes on the greens. That's going to be one of his best rounds for the year. So for us to try and buy back in on him when he's going to have plenty of ownership, a lot of people are going to think that that's an encouraging sign for Hideki. But just historically, one of the most dog shit putters out there. You know, there's just no way to cover that up there. He really doesn't get it done very much with the flat stick. So going to be a fade for me. Taylor Gooch had a very frustrating round yesterday. You could see that he wasn't liking the pace of play of a Kevin Na. Kevin Na, one of our sleeper picks, by the way, kind of carrying my player pool right now. So pretty happy about that. Didn't have any old man Jim Furyk. If you had any Jim Furyk, by the way, hats off to you guys. That was a great pick. I'm not sure if he keeps it up for all 4 rounds or anything like that, but great first round. Taylor Gooch, though, was getting really pissed off at Kevin Na. Kevin Na was taking forever to hit all of his putts. And Taylor Gooch, one of the fastest players on tour. Unfortunately, he has to deal with that again today. So I'm slightly concerned about him putting up a ceiling performance. Maybe he'll channel that anger into extra concentration. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not going to have him today. I have him in my 4-round stuff. I'd be thrilled if he went out and had a great day. In terms of his price tag, he went up in price. He's also likely to be chalk. You saw that for the 4-round stuff as well. I'd rather go to a Corey Connors, who also gained strokes putting. And Corey Connors at Waialae Country Club is just a thing. We need to get over it at this point. He's gained strokes putting here on every single round that he's played. He shot 6 under yesterday, and let's see how many strokes he gained yesterday. He gained just 0.2 yesterday, but anytime Corey Connors is gaining strokes putting, it's going to be great. He's top 5 in shots gained approach. He's top 10 in shots gained off the tee yesterday. We know he's one of the best ball strikers in the world, period, let alone in this, I don't want to say weak field, but average PGA Tour level field. He's still one of the best ball strikers in major level fields, so let alone a field like this. Russell Henley there at $9,200. I think you could make a very strong argument to start all of your lineups with just Corey Connors and then Russell Henley. I know they're going to be chalk. They both shot great rounds yesterday, but they're also picture-perfect course fits. I fully expected that. And now they're getting better conditions. Again, we're expecting lower wind in the morning. It should be a little bit softer because of all that dew out there on that grass, which is going to mean that they're out there having target practice. And the beauty of these two players is that first off, they're top 10 in this field in shots gained off the tee and driving accuracy. So very good at getting it in that short grass, especially so at this type of tight golf course. And they're also some of the best approach players in the world, not just in this field. They're number 1 and 2 in the field in shots gained approach. In the world, they're top 20 shots gained approach players. So that is exactly what is going to score low today. They're going to have better conditions. The greens aren't going to be all scuffed up from people walking on them. They'll be freshly pressed. They'll be extremely pure. I mean, I love those two plays. They're going off early in the morning. And I do expect those two to probably be in the lead after today, probably number 1 and 2, unless somebody goes nuclear, shoots a 59 today. That's definitely within the cards, right? So maybe they end up like 2nd, 3rd, or 3rd or 4th or something like that, but they're going to be in contention going into the weekend. Kevin Na is going to be undoubtedly chalk. The guy almost shot 59 yesterday. I have them in my ton of my lineups. I believe 35%. Probably should have put him in a little bit more there, but that's all right. He's $9,000. He's a fair price tag. He's a great course fit here. But again, I think I like these guys a little bit more because they're off the tee play, right? Kevin Na, not as consistent with his accuracy off the tee, whereas these two guys up here are just absolute machines. Just not going to get yourselves in trouble with those guys. And again, he's also going to be chalky. I mean, Kevin Na coming off that type of day, it's no surprise that he's playing well. Played well last week at Kapalua. Maybe if you want to eat the chalk, you just want to try and differentiate elsewhere. That is certainly a strategy you can use. I know over in the Discord chat, there was a lineup posted that was very chalky, but used a very low owned option down low. I'm not going to name who that was with the guy down low, but as long as it's sub like 3-4% owned, then you're going to be able to use that kind of lineup in Showdown. So it's a viable strategy, but just definitely be warned with that ownership number there. Joel Damon had a horrible day yesterday. He got a huge price increase, and I think that he stays chalk here. I hope that he has a great day today. I have him in pretty much all my best lineups. Have like Henley, they have Na, they also have Corey Connors, Taylor Gooch, like a lot of the guys that played really well yesterday, and then Joel Damon. I even have Matt Kuchar in a lot of those lineups. I have a few with Michael Thompson in them, and then Joel Damon. It's like my top 15 lineups, and I didn't play him in all my lineups. I played him in like 15% of my lineups. They all have Joel Damon for some reason. My cruncher, I need to go ahead and check that. It's really, really, really killing me right now. But hey, if Joel Damon turns it around, I'm probably going to be in the top 10, 15 with 3 or 4 lineups. So there's some upside there if Joel Damon goes out and has a huge day, but I'm not going to play him in Showdown. I'm not going to double down like that. In terms of his price, he's more expensive than he should be. He wasn't making a putt yesterday. He was definitely on with his irons and his wedges. Let me go ahead and bring up the exact numbers, but he gained off the tee. He gained with his approach play. Around the green, I do believe he lost strokes, but that's something we always see from Joel Damon. That usually doesn't hold him back too much. It's not like he bleeds strokes around the greens. And yeah, off the tee yesterday, he gained 1.2 strokes off the tee. He actually lost on approaches, which is something that we don't see very often. That's probably the biggest cause for concern for Joel Damon. And he lost the 1.4 strokes putting, which we knew about. He couldn't buy a putt yesterday. I'm probably going to be off him for Showdown for that reason, right? He lost strokes on approach. That is definitely a bit concerning there. For my sake, I hope he turns it around, but for Showdown picks, for my projections, wouldn't be in a positive light there. Let's go down to Maverick McNeely. He looked absolutely perfect yesterday. He's $8,300. He's one of the longer hitters in this field, which, again, doesn't really mean all that much. But at the same time, he's got the approach play. He's had it for the last 3-4 months. If we take more of a broader approach, maybe like a 50 to 100 round sample size, the approach play is not great. In fact, he's losing over that type of sample size. But if we narrow that down to the last 24 to 36 rounds, he really looks like one of the best players in this field. He's always been one of the best putters on all of the PGA Tour. So definitely will be my player bull today. He was absolutely perfect off the tee. What is going on, guys? Thank you guys for stopping by. And you said, damn, should have listened to my gut and faded Matt Jones. Yeah, he was one of my biggest fades of the week. So, yeah, I agree, man. He was in your lineup. Dang, yeah. I had 0%. He burned me last week. He had like the most perfect shots gained recipe for disaster. He gained like a ton of strokes around the greens, ton of strokes around the greens. It just not very consistent stuff right there. Ed Willis, it sounds like all my lineups at the top with McCarthy. Yeah, dude. So it's crazy how that happens, right? Like you'll have a bunch of lineups, only like 10 to 15% exposure to somebody, and they're in like all your best lineups. Hey, McCarthy, we're going to get to him here in a second. He's one of my favorite plays for Showdown today. He lost 4 strokes on the greens, and he's the best putter on tour, but he's also the best putter in history on shots gained Bermuda grass. And he lost 4 strokes on these greens. That's not happening again. So, yeah, we'll get to him here in a second. You have a lot of positivity going for McCarthy, by the way. He's going to turn it around today. Dylan Scott said, good thing is always hoping Naught gives it up. Yeah, me too, man. I had him in my large field contest. I had 6x the field. Actually, no, listen, I had about 4 or 5x the field. I wish I had more. All right, let's keep going to this. Actually, let's talk about the Denny McCarthy thing because he might be my favorite play on the slate. So he's $7,500, and I'm going to bring up the exact number because I don't want to be exaggerating at all here when I say this. Denny McCarthy, he lost. Okay, they adjusted it a bit. So the guys that were out late, that dealing with the scuffed up greens kind of brought the number back to neutral a little bit. They're also just the worst players on the field, right? You're talking about some of the qualifiers, some of the amateurs, some of the Japan Tour qualifiers where the guys playing at the end of the field. So he was closer to 4 strokes lost putting yesterday. Now it's still 2.69, which is horrible. That's one of the worst rounds he's ever had in his career. If I go and bring up my database, I'll go ahead and do that after I get off stream here. I'll tweet it or something like that if it was his worst round putting ever. But Would not be surprised. Again, this is the best tour putter historically ever. Like per the metrics, there's nobody that's made as many putts as Denny McCarthy does per 18 holes. He makes tons of 20, 30 footers. He makes all the putts from within 10 feet, essentially. I mean, the guy's just an absolute stud. The ball striking was there, and that's usually what we don't have from Denny McCarthy. Usually the putting is just absolutely carrying him. If you can continue that ball striking, which again, that's the most consistent part of the golf game, right? Usually that putting is volatile. It'll go up and down like a roller coaster. We could really catch a good round from McCarthy here. So I like the course fit. I like the way that the shots gained metrics could and should rebound. So he'll be in my player pool for sure. Jason Kokrak, I was wrong on him. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say that. Yesterday, I was very apprehensive to play Jason Kokrak. I'm typically somebody who plays him week in and week out. Love his volatility, love the iron play, love the upside with the putting. But at the same time, his off the tee game, not great for this golf course. He's also complaining about a back injury last week. And usually I'm one to try and just fade guys completely when you're dealing with injuries. I mean, it's hard enough to win on the PGA Tour, let alone if you're dealing with a back injury, which is by far the worst injury to have in golf. I've dealt with lower back injuries before with my own golf game. And now I'm not a professional golfer, but it made it unbearable. I just stopped playing it. It hurts every time you swing it. It's like a shooting pain. It's not a sore pain. So yeah, not a huge fan about it. Just I want to buy back in on him, right? Because he had that great round yesterday, but at the same time, the course fit's not there. So I'm going to continue the fade. He could very well still be dealing with that back injury. Could have slept on it wrong. Wake up today. That's the thing with back injuries, right? You think you're over them and then you sleep on it the wrong way and it comes back. I'm going to continue to fade him just based on my process. That's what I've been doing for my entire DFS career. It's worked out pretty well. I'm going to continue to do so. Let's go down to the chat, and I'll remind you guys, if you have any questions or somebody you want to deep dive on, go ahead and let me know. It says, we even talked about how much we hooded James this week. And of course, I ended up second guessing. Yeah, man, anytime you make last second changes, 99.99% of the time, it's going to backfire. It's you remember those more, right? You remember when you change things and they don't end up working out a lot more than when you change things and they work out. That's psychology. So even if like you're firing at a positive rate doing that type of thing, you're going to hate yourself a lot more than you like it. So I always just recommend that people just don't change your lineups. Like if you make them the night before the event and you crunch like 10, 20 times, you get your set of lineups together and you upload those in the morning, in like the 10, 20 minutes that you wake up before the event starts, especially for some of these East Coast events, don't change your lineups. You're groggy. You slept. You think you had some premonition that's going to give you some ideas. You don't. So just heads up for anyone out there in the future. Don't second guess your gut. Essentially, when you make your lineups, just stick to your process. More often than not, it's going to bite you in the ass. The only time that has ever worked out for me, it's worked out for me one time in my life, was with Phil Mickelson at the PGA Championship. Now, I was at that event. I drove up there the day before, staying at a hotel, and I woke up at like 5 a.m., like after having a dream, and Phil Mickelson had won the PGA Championship. I was like, dude, that's wild. That'd be so cool. Like, I can't even believe he's at this event. It was the last major that he was ever exempt for. So I think that's why I was thinking about it. I saw that on the Golf Channel the day before. I fired an outright bet on him. I didn't end up playing him with DFS. I didn't change my lines. I fired an outright bet on him. You guys know what happened, obviously. Ended up winning that PGA Championship. The only time it's ever worked out for me. There's thousands of times it hasn't worked out. Kirk or Hoagie. Let's get to Kirk or Hoagie right now for you. All right, so they're in this mid 7K range. They're at the same price tag here. Let's go ahead and look at the shots gained metrics for yesterday, because honestly, in terms of a course fit, similar players, right? Relatively short off the tee, but accurate. Also very good with their irons and their putting on Bermuda. So it's a very close course fit. Let's go into the metrics to try and differentiate them. So for Chris Kirk, he shot 4 under yesterday, which was a great round. And he gained off the tee, so he was relatively accurate off the tee. You like to see that. Gained a little bit on approach. Not really anything to write home about, though. He was number 67 in the field, and he gained strokes putting. So he had a relatively well-rounded day. In my opinion, this is probably a ceiling type performance for him. So he shot 4 under yesterday with everything really going right, which seems like a positive, but it might actually be not enough for him. So let's go down to Tom Hoagie now. He didn't have as good a day, I believe. And he had shot the same score. Okay. But his shots gained metrics are going to look a lot different here. Yeah. So shots gained metrics, he lost strokes on approach. He gained off the tee. He gained putting. So if you're looking for safety, if you're playing in cash, 100% would take Chris Kirk. He would be the slam dunk choice between the two. If you're looking for upside, lower ownership, I would definitely be taking Tom Hoagie. Probably looking at about half the ownership. I mean, Chris Kirk, just a much bigger name out there. The casuals are going to be clicking on him. And because he had a more consistent set of shots gained metrics, a lot of the people that are sharps and look into the metrics will probably pick him as well. So if you're a large field GPP, I mean, just similar plays in general, very similar skill sets. I'd go to the guy that's lower owned, but in cash, I'd be going with Chris Kirk. So a time and place for both of those guys, I'd say. Let's move down to this mid 7K range here. We're not going to touch on every player in this range, but we'll touch on some of my favorites. Brian Harmon was kind of an enigma yesterday. He made a ton of birdies, but also made a ton of bogeys. He was wildly inconsistent to start his round, but ended up getting the 3 under despite being 2 over through 5. So his shots gained metrics here will be interesting to look at. First and foremost, oh my God. I'm glad I brought this up on stream, okay? He lost 2.2 strokes off the tee, and he lost 2.2 strokes on approach. I mean, just over 4.5 strokes with his ball striking. He gained 2 strokes around the green and 3.5 on the greens. That is one of the most bizarre rounds that you're going to see for a single round sample size in a long time. Nothing within 2 of neutral. He was either excellent or absolutely dog shit at everything yesterday. So in my opinion, that's not somebody you want to target unless you're in a large field GPP. You want somebody who's going to be sub 2-3% owned. And if he figures out the ball striking, if he went out to the range last night, really grinded it out, figured it out, who knows, could have a great round, right? He still shot 3 under despite not having his irons or his off the tee play. That's like me or you going out there, okay? Maybe not quite me or you, right? We would lose like 30 strokes to the field, but just a really, really bad ball striker going out there and just competing because he's that good with his short game. That does not happen very often at all. But he's historically, I will say with Brian Harmon, he's typically really good off the tee and really good on approach. He's historically one of the best ball strikers on the tour. So much with like a Denny McCarthy yesterday, there's a lot of encouragement, right? There's a lot of good signs going for them that they should at least have some type of regression. So that's why they're interesting in some of these large field tournaments. And I have plenty of Denny McCarthy. I have 25% this week. So Ed Willis, I am right with you with Denny McCarthy, man. Hoping I think he can make a run at the cut line. I mean, if he goes out and gains a couple strokes putting, which he usually does, is going to put a dent into that +1 score. Keegan Bradley down here at $7,300. He had a very average day. He played in those easy, very benign conditions yesterday morning and only was able to get to 1 under. And if we go ahead and check out the metrics from yesterday, I can almost guarantee you he lost strokes on the greens. He's just week in and week out one of the worst putters on tour. I mean, year in and year out, one of the worst putters on tour as well. Now let's check it out. So his shots gained putting metric yesterday, he lost over a stroke and a half putting. The issue is he gained 1.6 strokes around the green, which is not something that can be very consistent. And he lost strokes off the tee and on approach. That is not the recipe for Keegan Bradley to have a good day. He usually relies on that off the tee play and that approach play, much like a Brian Harmon does. And if he doesn't have that, you want absolutely none of them. So he's going to be a fade for me. Even though he is in my 4-round stuff, I absolutely hope he turns it around. Just don't see a whole lot in his game. Peter Monnadi shot 3 over and he saw a price increase to $7,200. You're going to want nothing of that. I mean, even if he's coming in 0.2% owned, I mean, the guy is at 3 over. He has almost no chance to make the cut. He has every incentive to go out there and just try to shoot an absolutely nuclear score. But at the same time, he had nothing working for him. I mean, I was watching his shot tracker yesterday. He was in my player pool, had him in 3 of my 150 lineups, and he was missing almost every single green. His chips weren't even that good. He was putting himself to 7 to 8 feet, and he actually made his good share of those putts. It's just that when you're putting yourself to 8-foot par putt in every single hole, you're not going to shoot a good score. Alex Smalley, who we haven't seen very often, but there's like a whole fan club behind the Alex Smalley fan club. Just people love playing the guy. He's a good ball striker. He's a good putter. He's extremely volatile. He gains in almost all 4 major statistical categories from time to time, and he'll do it in bunches. He'll gain 4 or 5 strokes in that one category. And the rest of his game will kind of be hit or miss as well. So it's really, people are buying in on him. The reason why his betting number is actually a lot better than a lot of the other people in this range is just because he has that upside. If he figures out how to put 2 or 3 of those characteristics together on any given week, he can win a golf tournament. I mean, statistically, if you overmatch those 3 statistics, add up together, he's talking about 16, 17 shots gained in those 3 categories. I mean, as long as he's not bleeding strokes in the 4th, could go out and win the golf tournament. There's not a lot of guys that can do that, right? For example, Robert Streb, he's not capable of going out there and gaining 7-8 strokes on approach. He's a very consistent kind of, bides his time, hits to the middle of greens, relies on that putter from time to time. Sure, you can gain 5 or 6 strokes putting it during a tournament, but he's not going to do that in any other category. Whereas Alex Smalley, extremely volatile, has that type of pop ability in all 4 shots gained categories, is someone we want to target. Same thing with Adam Schenk. He's capable of gaining a ton of strokes off the tee on approach putting. Around the green, maybe not so much, but he at least has that ability in 3 of the 4 shots gained categories. Those are the type of guys I'm looking for in a showdown. And yeah, Barry says, let's go Poston. Yeah, man, I'm so happy for him. He finally turned it around. He looked really bad there for a long time. So yeah, I know I mentioned that he was grinding, really working on his game. Clearly worked out, right? He's always been a good putter. He turned around the approach play yesterday. He said, low into Hideki and Rock showdown for you. Yeah, I'm not huge on Hideki, man. He gained 2.4 strokes putting yesterday. And we know the kind of putter that Hideki is, so I don't expect that to continue, but best of luck, man. Knox, I'll definitely have in showdown though. Knox is always a stud. Particularly at these shorter type of golf courses where you got to be accurate off the tee. He's really the type of player that we're looking for in these instances. All right. Moving down here, you got JT Poston at $7,000. You could use him in showdown. He's not my favorite play for today. I think there's a few other guys on this range I kind of prefer to him. Again, he was almost the dead min for DFS purposes this week. Now he's $7,000. So definitely saw the price increase he deserved. Brandt Snedeker almost won this golf tournament. He's -4 right now. He's a great course fit. He's one of the shorter hitters here that can compete because of his putting, because of his approach play and his wedge play. It's going to come down to the off the tee play, right? Like I said, the rough here, a lot more lush than in years past. So we got to make sure we're hitting a lot of fairways. So I'm going to go do a little bit of a deep dive on Snedeker's off the tee play yesterday. And if he has it down, if he's keeping the ball in play, somebody I will consider. So let's go ahead and check this out. Yesterday, he gained strokes off the tee and he hit 10 of 14 fairways. I mean, that's enough to get by for Brandt Snedeker, right? He has the around the green play to save himself a handful of times during a round. So Snedeker at $7,000, I think he could do a whole lot worse. Great Bermuda grass putter. Again, great with those short approaches. And he's keeping the ball in play. That's the real key for him here. Brandon Grace did not have a great round. I'm not on Brandon Grace. He's not a great Bermuda grass putter. He is good at short coastal tracks. But anytime you have trends like that, and I'll just go ahead and say this right now, there's just so much volatility with those quote-unquote trends. And a lot of times people love to ignore when things don't go their way. They'll be like, oh, but, he's won at 3 coastal tracks. Yeah, he's played like 30, 40 events at coastal tracks too. What, a 8-9% win rate? Is that enough to say, oh, he's a lock at these short coastal tracks? No, that's far from it. So that's my take on some of those trends, guys. And that's for pretty much anything like that. I'm not huge on those type of things. It's like, oh, everyone that won at this golf tournament is over the age of 31. That's something for this golf tournament. Okay, well, a lot of that's because most winners are over 31 on the PGA Tour. It's like 70, 80% plus of them, right? So for that to be the case for the last 10 years, it's like everyone goes out and can go play blackjack and win 10 hands of blackjack in a row. That doesn't mean you're going to go and win all the money blackjack. You're probably going to lose your hat. So that's my 2 cents on that. There's just a lot of volatility with it, right? It's like a blackjack game. You can go on a run and you're still likely to lose money that night. Chad Ramey here at $6,900. He was the absolute Corn Ferry Tour standout. He's great off the tee, great on approach. His real weakness is around the green. And here, because this is a resort style golf course, we don't deal with any huge undulations around the green or even on the greens here. Chad Ramey going to be in play. He'll figure out that kind of stuff eventually, right? He'll hone in that around the green play. He'll get better at some of these more complex golf courses eventually. He's young, right? He'll figure that out eventually. But as of right now, great on these more resort style golf courses. Jim Herman saw a price increase despite almost being in dead last after his round in the morning. Makes no sense. I told you guys that I wasn't playing him. He's an absolute slot machine. If you want somebody who's going to win about once every 300 starts on the PGA Tour, play a Jim Herman, right? If you get him right that 0.3% of the time or whatever it is, you're going to win a lot of money. But this is a golf course where he could see some success, but I just don't see it happening. Hank Lebiota was very inconsistent yesterday. He was either wildly missing every single green and putting himself in really bad spots, making bogeys, or he was stuffing it to 3 to 4 feet. So if he can kind of clean that up, hit more of those good shots than bad shots today, is going to shoot something real low. So he kept it at even par despite having he hit a shot out of bounds as well. I believe had a penalty shot at one point. They didn't say what that was for. And still shot even par. So there's at least a little bit of encouragement there with Hank Lebiota. He was really solid in 2021. A lot of you guys that are new to golf probably have no idea who the hell he is. But just if you look at his record from last year, you'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of consistent performances. Barry says, thoughts on Stanley round 2? I knew we're out from the main slate. I'll check out his metrics from yesterday right now for you. 1 second. Yeah, he's a great iron player for sure. He's also really good off the tee. He's really accurate. He's Corey Connors, but a worse putter. That's and I don't mean that in a bad way. Do you know what he shot yesterday? Because I'm trying to find him on the board. It couldn't have been anything crazy, right? Yo, what did he shoot, Barry? If you can let me know. -4. Yeah, nothing crazy. He can't make enough putts. Yeah, he withdrew, man. So I talked about that during the live stream. He withdrew, and Draftkings for whatever reason didn't mark him out, which is really if you had him in lineups, I would talk to the support chat or whatever. I'd be like, hey, you guys didn't mark him out, right? You guys do that for every other sport. Why wouldn't you do that for Pat Perez? I want my money back or something like that. You might be able to get your money back doing that, by the way. All right, so we have Kyle Stanley up right now. He was 4th in shots gained off the tee yesterday, gained 1.5 strokes off the tee. On approach, he gained a third of a stroke yesterday, which he's usually a lot better than that, and he lost strokes putting. The thing is, he went neutral with the putter. He only lost 0.1 strokes with the putter yesterday. You could convince me to play some in Showdown, right? So you're dealing with a volatile type of sample size anyways. It's just 18 holes. You could convince me to play some Kyle Stanley, that's for sure. And he shot 4 under yesterday with a neutral putter. If he goes out there and somehow gains a stroke or two, that's a ceiling type of performance. So he definitely has an avenue to the success here. And yeah, Timothy, like I said, he withdrew, and yeah, it's an annoying situation from Draftkings. They didn't mark him out. I didn't notice it until Wednesday morning, and I looked at the Rob Bolton. He does a lot of the withdrawals and stuff. After this, I'm going to go ahead and comment down below the guy that does a lot of the withdrawals for the PJ Tour on Twitter. He usually gets them out there real quick. He withdrew on Monday, but it seems like no one in the industry knew about it. Like literally, I heard nowhere he withdrew. There were a lot of people that played him in the large field Millie Maker type of contest, the 200K to first contest. It's an oversight by DraftKings that they shouldn't have been making. Grayson Sig, hopefully you guys tailed that pick right there. Grayson Sig, great course fit here. Finally turned around the putter. Just to give you guys an idea of the type of round that he had. He gained with the putter. I just want to find out exactly how many strokes, because we could see some improvement. He still missed some short putts yesterday. So yesterday gained 1.5 strokes off the tee, was extremely accurate. Gained 0.8 strokes on approach, exactly what we're looking for. In fact, still lost strokes putting. So he still made plenty of putts yesterday. I would have expected that to at least been neutral or a little bit positive. It has a ton of room for improvement. This is somebody who historically, especially during college, was very good on Bermuda grass greens. Any of the golf tournaments for college that were held in the Southeast, when he was in college, he was contending, if not winning all of them. He almost won College Player of the Year. If it weren't for Matt Wolff, if it weren't for Victor Hovland, he would have been winning Player of the Year awards. He was playing for the best team in all of the college golf, and he wasn't getting every start as a result. They had so many good players over there. Whereas the Hovland, the Wolves, that kind of thing, they didn't have as deep of teams. So they were playing every single event. That's why they got the benefit of the doubt there. All right, let's keep moving a little bit further down the board. So in this range, you're starting to really get to the trash kind of players, for lack of a better word. Guys that didn't have good rounds yesterday. Wesley Bryan had a good round yesterday, decent course fit. I did have him in my 4-round stuff, so I wouldn't be shy about going to him once again. Bo Halsler also had a decent round. He was in my 4-round stuff. Great putter, good approach player when he has his stuff down. And clearly was a decent ball striker yesterday with that type of round. Hao Tong Lee is like the surprise of the slate. The guy hardly plays over here in America, usually doesn't even play that well, and absolutely went off. You can see on the European Tour, he's volatile to begin with. Miscut. 14th. Pretty good, right? Hardly made the cut. And then comes over here and shoots 7 under. So if you had Houghton Lee, congratulations. But I don't expect that to continue going forward. Towards the bottom of the board, Brian Gay could be somebody to take a shot on. He's only $6,200. Great putter on Bermuda grass. One of the shorter hitters that's going to get away with it this week. Luke Donald, also in my player pool, very similar type of player profile. Short off the tee, good with the wedges, great putter on Bermuda. Cheston Hadley, same exact type of profile. Go to him as well. And I wouldn't play anyone at the complete minimum. These guys they're all pretty trash, for lack of a better word. All right, so let's go ahead and make a lineup now. So we've gone through pretty much the whole player pool. If there's anybody you want me to touch on specifically, obviously wasn't going to touch on all 144 players, but if there's anybody you want me to do a deep dive on, more than willing to do so. But we'll start off with a cash lineup. So if you're playing cash, like I said before, I think there's a huge argument to be made just to start with Connors and Henley. Sorry, guys. I was sick 2 weeks ago, and I thought I was done coughing. It's not. All right, so like I said, a very good idea to start with both of these players. Both of them immaculate ball strikers. Also with the emphasis of hitting fairways with the extra lush rough this week. Going to be a huge advantage to taking these superb ball strikers. So both of them gained strokes putting yesterday as well. Again, Corey Connors, just an absolute savant on these greens. And if he's going to gain strokes putting, he's going to finish in the top 10 here every single time. So really do like him there at $9,300. If we're going to take anyone in this 8K range, like I said before, these guys at the top, not huge fans of. Kevin Kisner, Billy Horschel, a little bit more expensive than we can take now, with just $7,800 remaining per player. I want to try and keep this because it's a cash lineup, just a little bit more consistent, a little bit less studs and duds than we would be with a GPP type of build. Jason Kokrak, if I was playing him today, I'd be willing to slot him in there. Maverick McNeely would make a lot of sense. Seamus Power had a great round yesterday, but unfortunately he's a little bit too volatile for cash contests. He's typically putting up something between 5 to 7 under, or something closer to par. There's usually not an in-between for Seamus Power. Not one of the safer players out here. And the more and more I see this, the more and more I'm talking myself into perhaps taking somebody towards the top of this range. Main options could be a Kevin Na, right? He's going to be chalk, but we're also playing in a cash contest. There's actually a huge advantage to going out there and playing the chalk in cash. So I'm okay playing a Kevin Na in cash. Definitely be in my lineup here. We got a question down here we'll touch on at the halfway point of this lineup. You said Webb, Stanley, or Hideki Knox. Okay, so, and is this a cash or a GPP build? Because that'll matter for this question. Because for me, there's one clear cash build. There's one clear GPP build there. GPP, definitely the Hideki Knox then. You're talking lower ownership, also arguably higher upside as well. So I take the second pair. The first pair would be more of a cash build because Webb's very safe at this golf course. They hit a lot of greens. Might not have the highest upside just because of how he played yesterday. But Stanley, very safe as well, right? Going to hit a lot of greens. Not going to put himself in a lot of trouble. Might not have that huge upside because he's not the best putter, but safe. So hopefully that answers your question there for you. All right, moving back to the cash build here. You can see it didn't really take our average salary remaining down too far. So taking a Kevin Na is going to be all right for us. Now let's move down to the 7K range where we can live and be very consistent, have a very balanced build with our last 3 spots. Like I mentioned before, Tom Hoagie, more of a GPP type of build. Chris Kirk, more of the cash play. He's going to be a little bit chalky today, but has played well here over the last few years. He's played here a ton, has a lot of experience, and his game fits this golf course very well. Accurate off the tee, very solid on approach. Not the best Bermuda grass putter, but he's putted well at Waialae in the past, much like a Corey Connors. Just gained strokes here for whatever reason. So like playing him here in cash. We have $7,400 remaining per player. Brian Harmon, again, more of a GPP play than a cash play. Denny McCarthy, a great play for cash, though. Like we said, lost more than 2.5 strokes putting yesterday. One of his worst rounds on record. Definitely expect that to rebound and was great with the ball striking. So should have a very solid round today. And we have $7,300 remaining. We don't have to spend all of our salary. Let's go ahead and find the most well-rounded play here. Ryan Palmer had a great day yesterday. I was listening to him on the broadcast. They had him on the broadcast yesterday, and he sounded like he really liked this golf course. I didn't know that he won back in 2010. To be quite honest with you, when I was doing my preview, I talked about the last 7 years of winners, and he won back in 2010, which I don't think many people in their industry at all really talked about. He won, and it hadn't even been renovated since then. It's pretty much the same golf course as what they had in 2010. Yesterday, he was talking about how he hopes the rough gets longer. He hopes it ends up drying out so it gets harder and harder. So he enjoys the golf course playing the way that it is. I don't hate going to him in cash. It was an oversight in my 4-round stuff for sure. But for a cash game tomorrow, anytime you hear that a golfer really likes the golf course, I was hoping that it gets harder. I think that's the key thing. When they hope it gets slightly harder, you know that somebody's comfortable at that golf course. So I don't like to look into narratives too much. Narrative aside, he's a very accurate driver of the golf ball. He's also somebody who's not afraid to go and club down from time to time, solid on approach. And for his shots game putting on Bermuda, he's not the best, right? He's right about a tour average player when you look at that. I'm going to go and look into his shots gained metrics here a little bit just to confirm, make sure that there wasn't anything too wacky with his play. Because he wasn't in my player pool, I wasn't actively monitoring his stats. All right, let's look at Ryan Palmer. So yesterday gained 1.45 shots gained off the tee. That's excellent. He was extremely accurate. He hit only 8 of 14 fairways, so he did it a lot with his distance. So I think that 1.45 shots gained off the tee might be a little bit deceptive there. Again, the rough here a little bit more penal than usual. He's able to gain strokes putting around the green and on approach, though. So he was solid across all 4 statistical categories. Yeah, he's a solid play. So I really wish I had my 4-round stuff. When you have somebody that's gaining across all 4 major statistical categories, it's hard to sink that ship, right? He's got 3 things holding him up at the very least if one goes out there and fails. And even if his 2 of his tires end up blowing out, he's got 2 of them to potentially keep him at a neutral rate. So that is a very solid combination for a cash player when you're getting across all 4 major statistical categories. And I would say that would be the case for most players on this list. I mean, Corey Connors, Henley, horrible around the green. They're not going to lose enough strokes around the green for it to really matter, though. Kevin Na, very balanced. Chris Kirk, very balanced. Danny McCarthy turns the putter back, will be a very balanced play. So, yeah, this would be my cash build right here. Very balanced build, living in that 9 and 7K range. Let's do a GPP build. So we're going to make this one wacky. All right, guys, this is going to be a true GPP build. This wouldn't be like for a single entry kind of thing. This wouldn't be my main lineup. In the middle of my process, let's say we already made 60 lineups at this point. Okay. This is going to be that type of build. So keep that in mind. All right. This probably going to be one of the lineups that I'm actually using for today. So keep that in mind. When I try to do this, I usually start at the bottom. So that's how you can make your lineup unique. Okay. You start at the bottom. I already said that I don't like anyone in that 6K range. I don't think we have to start down here at $6,100. Let's start right in the middle of the 6K range and find a few guys we want to plant our flags in. So we talked about Kyle Stanley being an intriguing play. Not really on my list, at least my short list for right now. Grayson Sigg, we're going to go ahead and put him in there, right? He lost strokes putting yesterday. He was great from tee to green, but historically great on Bermuda grass. So I expect that to flip at some point. He was still able to put up a relatively respectable round. Grayson Sigg, a great source of ownership leverage and value at $6,700. Let's go ahead and find another player down low we can pivot to. Kita Naikazema. I need to learn how to say his name because the guy is going to be a PGA Tour pro relatively soon. He's the #1 amateur in the world. Absolute stud. Gained a ton of strokes on approach yesterday. He missed like 3 5-footers, though. They kept showing him on the broadcast, which I'm glad. They got to get this kid exposure while they can because he's still an amateur. He's going to be an amateur for at least another year. But absolute stud, $6,800. I wouldn't be afraid to use him here. Let's make it. I said before, we're gonna make this a wacky lineup. This is gonna be like I'm halfway through building my set of 150. I don't build by hand, but this is something that the computer would be doing at this point. So now that we have that out of the way, we have a ton of salary to spend. We have $9,100 remaining per player, and with how soft pricing is for a lot of these tournaments, we can pretty much play whoever we want. So let's go ahead and do that. Cam Smith, #1. He's the most expensive player on the board. Also likely to be relatively underowned. People aren't going to want to pay that price tag for someone that seemingly had a really quote unquote bad day, but he still shot 3 under par. So if his bad day is going to be 3 under par, and we're expecting him to shoot 5 or 6, clearly one of the best projected plays on the slate. Let's move down to this 9K range. We might be able to try and take one of these more expensive. Actually, let's try and fit in a Mark Leishman. Really like him here. High upside play. Also only shot 3 under par, but a great course fit, great iron play, great putting on Bermuda grass for his career. Also more expensive than he probably should be. So I don't expect him to be chalk for this slate. Now we have $8,100 remaining per player. So let's go ahead and take one 8K guy and one 7K guy. Someone that really speaks, just I think could be a great play here would be Maverick McNeely. He had a great day with his ball striking for tee to green yesterday. Also gained strokes putting. So had a solid round. Probably going to have a little bit of ownership here. But again, we've been taking some pretty against the grain type plays up top. So don't have to worry about ownership quite as much. Now we have $7,900 remaining. Chris Kirk would be the safe play here, but Tom Hoagie has immense upside. This guy goes out there seemingly once every 2-3 events, shoots something in the low 60s. And at this type of venue is a perfect course fit. So in terms of a GPP build, you can still be left a little bit of salary on the table. I don't think you have to force that at all. If you end up leaving a little bit of salary on the table, so be it. But you can see we didn't take anybody in the top 10. That is a very easy way to make sure you're getting ownership leverage. It's also just factually a little bit more likely to be successful, right? Anytime you have somebody that has a peak level of performance, the natural progression is to regress towards the mean, right? So some of these guys, I shot a little bit less than where they should have, especially some of the guys that are great course fits like a Cam Smith, Mark Leishman, whatnot. They should regress positively, whereas some of those guys up top, even though they had great days, and you're going to see a few of them continue that momentum, a lot of them are going to regress towards the mean. So that's just how statistics work. It's just the natural progression of a linear curve. Again, not every single event is probabilistically tied. Like some of them are independent, but at the same time, it's just, you see that over time, right? Things regress towards the mean. Cool. So that's all we've got here. Go over a few questions before we hop out of here. I did not touch on Bazane so let's go ahead and do that. Bazane had a great day yesterday. His ball striking was immaculate. He would hit both par 5s and 2. He was sticking the ball close on a lot of greens, and he didn't make every putt. So let's go ahead and look at the metrics because he could also be an intriguing option for today. So first and foremost, gained 1.1 strokes off the tee. That is insane. He gained 1.8 strokes on approach. That is insane. He's not typically one of the best ball strikers on tour. I'll definitely say that about him. He's typically one of the best putters, but he only gained 0.2 strokes putting. Yeah. Play a lot of his Ainhoot today, guys. In fact, I'd rather have him than Tom Hoagie in cash and GPPs. With that being said, I had no idea that he gained 3 strokes ball striking. That doesn't happen for him very often. And let's go ahead and look at this game log real quick because I want to show you guys what I mean about his upside. BMW PGA Championship. That is the Players' Championship for the European Tour. Okay, he finished 5th place. So that's like almost a major level type of tournament. 5th place. Korn Ferry Tour Championship. You guys know how important that is. That's essentially getting your tour card. That's how he got his tour card. 3rd place. There were a lot of really good names in that field. He also played well during those Korn Ferry Tour playoffs going into that. And what they're not showing before that is towards the beginning of the year, he had a win. He had multiple top 5 finishes on the European Tour. This is somebody who, when he has that ball striking, he competes. It's not the putter, right? A lot of these other players, they have the ball striking. They have that complete game. It's the putter that has to turn. It's the ball striking that has to turn, and it turns. So great call on him, Devin Scott. He's the Bermuda Grass Master. Yeah. Any European Tour people, it's like Sam Burns, right? And Sam Burns, when he gets on Bermuda Grass, you play the damn guy. On the European Tour, when you get Bazane on Bermuda, you play him. They call him Bermuda Grass Bazane, or I don't know. They have some type of nickname for him. I'm not a big European Tour guy, but I'm sure there's something out there for him. Cool. That's all we got here, guys, though. If you're watching the replay of this, probably not that many of you will because we only got an hour before lock. But if you are, feel free to throw a question down in the chat. I'll get back to you before it locks. We'll be doing the same thing tomorrow morning, hopefully a little bit earlier. My plan's to go live right around 9 a.m. rather than 10 a.m. Give you guys a little bit more time to ingest the content, make your own lineups. But let's get this cash today.